Alright, here we're going to take a look at filling out W-2 forms. When you ask for the W-2 on the IRS website, this is what you're going to see. The IRS, unlike other forms, the IRS does not want you to fill out this form online or even to print it out and do it by hand. You cannot do any W-2s or 1099s by hand. You will be penalized. You will get a penalty sent to you for every W-2 that you sent in by hand. You also cannot, again, type on these on the screen here. You have to go to the IRS and get the actual form, and it comes in multiple copies, and then you take it to an old-fashioned typewriter and type on it. Or you have software, and the software has gotten approval from the IRS for their W-2 version, which will have the correct numbers of the boxes like this, but may not look exactly like this. But you cannot use this form that's on here. They're just showing you this for informational purposes. If you do this form, it cannot scan into their system, and then they are not happy with that. Let me see. This red part of the form, which is going to, and you can see down here at the bottom of each copy where it's going to go. This is copy A for the Social Security Administration. Okay, photocopies not acceptable. You have to have an original because the photocopies will not scan in their equipment. Okay, do not cut, fold, or staple forms on this page. You can see how important it is to be exactly correct. Okay, this next copy says copy 1 for state, city, or local tax department. So this is what you would send to South Carolina along with the annual SIT reconciliation that we went through in a different YouTube. This copy here, it says copy B to be filed with the employee's federal tax return. So this copy has to go to the employee, and they are going to then attach it to their tax return if they file a paper tax return. This is copy C for the employee's records. So that's the copy that the employee would keep for themselves, and so that you would have to give that to the employee by January 31st. Here is copy 2 to be filed with the employee's state return. So when the employee fills out their own South Carolina return, they would attach this to that return if they did a paper return. And copy D for the employer. This is the copy that you are going to keep. So you can see there's multiple copies here, and if you got the ones that go into a old-fashioned typewriter, they're all carbonated so that you just type on the top copy and it goes through all these other copies. But you have to make certain that you're giving the correct copy to the correct organization and the correct copies to the employee, and you keeping the correct copy. Alright, so let's take a look at this W-2. The employee's Social Security number is up here in box A. That has to be correct. If you have any errors in that Social Security number, you will be penalized $50 a pop, I believe it used to be. Okay. Employer identification number, that's your federal ID number, goes there. Your employer's name and address. The control number is optional. Some companies want to have their own control number in there. However, whatever number you want to put in there. But it can just be left blank. E is the employee's name and initial, and then the address below that. Okay? Alright, let's go to box 1. This is the employee's gross wages that are taxable for FIT. So if the employee had $30,000 of gross wages, but they put $1,000 into their 401k, and remember that the 401k that they have deducted is not taxable for FIT. So in this case, box 1 would be $29,000 in box 1. It's the amount that's taxable for the FIT. Box 2 is the actual FIT that you withheld from their check for the year. Obviously, these numbers are going to match. This FIT withheld should match their employee's earnings record. Social Security wages is how much of the wages, gross wages, was taxable for Social Security. So if they had the $30,000 gross wages and they had $1,000 out for the 401k, well, the 401k does not affect how much is taxable for FICA. And so this box 3 would have the whole $30,000. Box 4 is how much Social Security tax did you withhold from that employee. This does not include the employer's part, just the employee's part. Box 5 is how much of the gross wages was taxable for Medicare. Generally, this will be the whole gross wages. Sometimes 3 and 5 will be different if the person made more than the maximum for Social Security. So if they made, say, $120,000 of gross wages, box 3 would only have the maximum in it because that's the part that's taxable. So the $117,000, or whatever the maximum is for that year, would go here. And of course, the maximum Social Security that you had withheld from that employee would go in box 4. Box 5 would include the whole $120,000 because there is no maximum for Medicare. So that would equal the total gross wages. And box 6 is the Medicare that is withheld. All right. Box 7 is if our company has waiters and any Social Security tips that are taxable would go in box 7. And still, of course, the Social Security tax withheld that we withheld would be on whatever wages they got, plus withheld any on the Social Security tips that they got. Okay, the allocated tips is if they did not claim enough tips to be at least 8%, then the company has to put how much is 8% of the sales that that person was responsible for, because they should have received at least that much in tips. But if they did not claim at least 8% in tips, then we have to put how much that 8% of tips actually is. And so we didn't have to withhold back during the year on those allocated tips, but we do have to put it on their W-2. Dependent care benefits is if the company pays like daycare and stuff, provides some kind of daycare benefits to the employee, and that needs to go on the employee's tax return. Okay, so that goes there. Box 12, there's A, B, C, and D, and you see it says code. You're going to put a code there, and then the amount. And this is going to be where you put some odd things like the 401k that was withheld. So in the example where we had 29,000 up here in box 1 that was taxable for FIT, but they had gross wages of 30,000 because they had 1,000 taken out, we would put the code, which is D, a big capital letter D here for the code, and then $1,000 would be next to it. Box 13 is the statutory employee, would be like a insurance salesperson, might be in a statutory employee. We're not going to have any of those on our project or anything. The retirement plan is anybody who's in any kind of retirement plan with this workplace. So it can be the employer has a regular retirement plan, or it can be a 401k, it can be an IRA, simple plan like you have for the project, etc. Okay, box 14 is going to be where you can put some additional information, and you are supposed to put down in box 14 how much that you, the employer, paid for their health insurance. Okay, and that's information that they may need, and so you're supposed to put that. You could put other things. If they had withheld for United Way, that can be a deduction on their tax return. It's just helpful for them to have it, but that stuff is not required to be there. Okay, box 15 is the zip code, or the state symbol. So for South Carolina, SC would go there, and then the employer's state ID number, and so your company's state ID number, which is usually different from the federal ID number, that would go there. The state wages for South Carolina, whatever goes in box 16 is the same as what's in box 1. For the state of Pennsylvania, for your project, Pennsylvania doesn't recognize certain things, and so that goes in box 1. And so Pennsylvania wages would be different from box 1. The state income tax is how much SIT was withheld from that employee. Local wages, local meaning like a city. So again, usually box 18 will be the same as box 16. And box 19, local income tax, this would be your city income tax that you withheld. And the locality name, you put just, 4 or 5 letters to indicate where that's from. So in South Carolina, we don't have any city taxes, so these boxes would be left blank. For your project, box 18 would be the same as 16. Box 19 is the Philadelphia tax that you've withheld, and you would put PHILA in here for the locality name. And this particular W-2 gives you spaces for 2 different states for this employee. And like I say, a W-2 can be done differently. It has the same box numbers, but it can be done differently with IRS approval. Okay? Now, if you go on down to one of these further ones where they have the codes, here are the start of the codes that go in box 12. And notice I said code D, elective deferrals to a 401k cash or deferred arrangement. Also includes deferrals under a simple retirement account that is part of a Section 401k arrangement. And here's the rest of the codes. Okay, and this code S is employee salary reduction contributions under a Section 408P simple plan. And this is the kind of simple plan that you have with the project. So you'll need to put code S for your simple plan.